the last time you stopped to reflect on yourself? Me. More on the inner you instead of the outer you. Like, it's all about me. You say I'm self-centered like it's a bad thing. Self-centered. Does it mean it's all about me? Or could it mean something else? I'm Reverend Grace, and today I am talking about self-centered. I would imagine that the same thing pops up in your mind when I say self-centered. It's all about me, I'm just being selfish, that sort of slightly more negative connotation. And I've been asked to step in for a minister, a local church, to run contemplative prayer early on a Sunday morning. So I ran it Sunday just gone, and as we fell into our time of silence and contemplative prayer, it popped into my head, self-centered. And when I left church later on and I was walking along and pondering this, and I was thinking, it's quite it's what you do in Christian contemplative prayer, but also it strikes me as being what people would say is a very new age thing, that you go within, you go into yourself, and being centered is when you're feeling like you're not off kilter. You're physically, you're mentally, you're emotionally, everything is just sort of, on a nice even keel. You're on a steady, firm foundation where you can act in the world with compassion and not react in the world. You're just, you're in a good place when you're centered in yourself. So to me, getting into the center of ourselves is, it's about that connection to the something greater, the something, the great mystery, the something other. So for some that is God, that's Jesus, that's Mary, it could be saints, could be goddesses, the divine spirit, by whatever you're thinking it is. For others it will be your higher self. We always like point upwards. I don't think it's we work in such a geographic thing, don't we? That's there and that's there, and obviously higher self is, well, I'm not sure there is a geographical location for that, maybe I'm wrong. So like the word judgment, I spoke about this in my discernment video, judgment seems to have got this like overtone of real, something very negative, and I think self-centered has too, and for obvious reasons. But I like to look at things a different way, and just in this thing of contemplating this thing of self-centered and I'm not trying to make up some sort of new practice or new term or whatever, but it did make me consider a few things. So one of the things is, it seems to me that we've lost the thing of everything being sacred. Things that we partake of, humans ourselves. There's something like some bloke, some clever chap or people worked out, a bit like a Sheldon, working out the probability of things. The odds of us being born, each of us, is 1 in 400 trillion. Because of all the things that have had to happen way back in the past, in the not so far past, and in the actual, like, our parents' lives coming together, so that they literally came together, so that we were, and then also like the numbers and the time of the month and the this and the that, and apparently with what's it called, with in vitro fertilization, they have a 2-hour prime window. So it's 1 in 400 trillion is the odds, the chances of us, each of us existing. That blows my mind. Even if that number's wrong, it's so way up in the trillions that even if it was an inflated figure, it's still going to be a massive figure, even if you are deflating from 400 trillion, I would say. That gives you the measure of my mass. For many, we're just born, we live, we do stuff, and then we die, and that's it. It's game over. Looking at that math, I think each of us are here for good reason. There is a purpose for each and every one of us. And I think a requirement in finding out what that is, partly I think it's going back to your childhood. Who were you when you were a much more freer spirit? And what were your dreams? What were the things that you were good at? What was the things you really had fun at? I think that's what did your play involve? I've certainly found out, or I look back and I thought, oh yeah, I used to play a lot of the things that actually now I'm doing in work, that I just like, I'm so in my element and I feel I'm where I'm meant to be. So yeah, that says a lot for me. But also I think there's a requirement to take time to be on your own and to be with oneself and to reflect on what am I doing now? Who am I? Where do I want to go? What do I want to be? What am I here to be? What am I here to do? That sort of thinking is not something that you can really wholly commit to or get clarity on whilst you're at work or you're doing the shopping or you're driving. Well, driving is quite a good one. I do a lot of thinking when I'm driving. But yeah, you know what I mean. So the other side of it is going down into the heart space, which is, you know, people say that in meditation, I suppose they're focusing on their heart space with breathing techniques and things like that. But, you know, if you want to put it absolute basic, just sit and be. Don't try and fight everything whirling around in your mind. I find the more times that you sit and you just be, the easier it is for that head. It's like the body's like, oh yeah, she's going to sit still now and we're all going to be quiet and everything's fine. So I find that I have to go to that part of me within us that seems to hold this sort of sense of peace. Practice switching off the ego mind, and yeah, listening for this other voice, as it were. I say voice. Sometimes it's more like a thought, but that thought is coming with some sort of a deep sense, or sometimes actually like it's bodily, but it's, yeah, a deep sense of knowing. As John St. Julian Babayama says, he has his own YouTube channel. I've mentioned him on videos before. He's a really great guy. He speaks a lot of sense and truth, and he says it in a way of like putting God back on the throne, putting God back on the throne, like God is in the driving seat rather than your ego mind. And to me, that is when you do that, that's what you're hearing. Whatever your understanding of God is, this higher thing, this higher connection, this something divine, this other connection to all of that. When you're practicing putting that back in the throne, in the driving seat of your life, yeah, you're I think you're on the right track. And of course, you know, you could call it intuition as well. It's listening to that intuition or this guidance or this voice or this knowing and discerning, you know, is that God? Is that for my betterment? Is that for everyone else's betterment? Yeah, and learning to trust, discern and trust that connection and that information coming through. So am I being selfish? Am I just taking too much time for myself? Am I not worthy of that? Am I martyring myself? I mean, crikey, we all do things in different ways, and sometimes we're our own worst enemy, I think. And self-centered can be seen like, you know, you haven't done enough. You haven't got time to be just sitting around on your own backside doing as you please and doing something for yourself and no one else gets included. This seems to be a sort of a, I don't know, it's become like a part of a way of our life. Do more, get out there, try harder, blah, blah, blah. I'm guilty of it myself. But imagine if we all had an understanding that this time to oneself, this time for reflection, this time for connection with something other, the greater mystery of it all, however you want to put it or think about it. Imagine if we all had an understanding that each of us needs this time and we allowed the space automatically, it was just a part of everyday life, to allow the space for each other to be able to be self-centered. In a very practical sense, there is a lot to be said for looking out for oneself, for making sure, taking responsibility really is what it is, for oneself, for your welfare, for your nourishment, to not let your battery run low. because I certainly found when I was a single mum and I was just really trying to do my best all the time, and quite often that seemed like it was the best wasn't good enough, and I just ran myself ragged with stress, with overworking, with over worrying, with over trying, with over maybe proving either to myself or trying to, we can really dig ourselves in some big old pits. And certainly every time that I've really pushed it and I've let my battery run too low, the only personal people that was really hurting or not helping was myself, and then my daughter, or anyone around me. There is a lot to be said for taking something back for yourself, to be able to give out to others, to be generous with our time and our nature and our spirit, and just be centered and not anxious and not worrying and not depressed, not comparing, not, just to be able to come back to being your self-centered, stable, wonderful person that we all are and fully can be when we're feeling a lot better, generally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. I would say there's a lot of people who they don't like, or they couldn't bear the thought of time spent on their own now, and certainly not carving it out and doing it purposefully, and also sitting doing what seems to be nothing. Such is the world. We're so used to constant communication and noise and action and distraction and entertainment and the old dopamine hits and all of that. I think some might find it difficult to even contemplate the thing of just slowing down, just taking a few minutes. So I think there's two aspects. Seems to be always more than one aspect with me. One, I think, is nourishing yourself, doing something that is just like you find it fun, or it gets you fit, just brings you enjoyment and makes you feel like you again. I think that in some way, that, I mean, it could be a bath, it could be playing tennis, it could be, I don't know, you do Warhammer games, whatever your interest is, the thing that brings you joy, walking nature, all that sort of thing. I think you need to have at least a bit of that once a month, something that's just for you. Carve it out, that seems to be key. But also through the daily times, it's taking those little pauses. I think meditation's become such a people using this term all the time, but just takes some pauses throughout the day, and it's literally pauses. You just letting those shoulders drop, closing your eyes if you can. It's literally like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, if you can do 5 minutes, just hitting the pause button and being a human being, not a human doing. But also, I think, now whether this is, and again, I don't want to be prescriptive, like you've got to factor this into your calendar. Little pauses in the day, yes. Doing something for you once a week, yes. However big or small, affordable, not, whatever. Or don't do things that you can't afford. That would be ridiculous, especially when you can just walk out in nature for free. But it's taking some times, purposeful times, at points in the year, I'm going to say, however they fall best for you, but actual times where you get to spend a day, a weekend, 5 days on your own. Maybe you do this once a year and you go, right, this is my me break. And you purposefully carve out a time where you reflect and you just take stock of yourself and who you are and what's going on in your life and what you'd like to change, where you want to go. This kind of check-in, you don't have to leave the house to do it, but you do have to carve the time out to be in a space that is, and a time that is specifically for you without disturbances, and you have purposefully carved that time out. I think when you're taking those these pauses where breathing and checking in with the body, letting the shoulders drop, let yourself breathe deeply in and out with your belly moving, not just up here in the higher chest, right up in your lungs. And it can seem like you're not doing anything or nothing's happening, And uh, I think that's not to be underestimated. Um, when I even if you're like, oh, you're losing concentration or you're losing your energy, like, oh, your battery's suddenly running low, just sitting in for a minute or two, and I felt certainly revitalized when I've done that before. I think those pauses also can yeah, they are the time in the whether you're thinking of it as this connection with something other. I really think that those times of pauses, either in that time or as a consequence of taking that time, that seems to be for me what can often bring great clarity, um, and or answers if I've sort of been pondering on a question. And also, yeah, the ability to get through my day feeling more joyous, or being able to act with compassion, or yeah, all that kind of a jazz. Because we don't live in a culture where taking some time out for oneself, um, making that an automatic carved out thing that we're all doing in our daily lives, our weekly lives, um, in our relationships and partnerships, in our living situations, we can be made to feel like we're being self-centered, or quite often is the case, we're making ourselves feel like we can't take that time, and that we're being selfish, and it's just all about me, and I shouldn't be doing that. So I would say the answer to that is, as it usually is, communication. None of us do it. Well, few of us do it, do we? And yet we would get on so much better, I'm sure, if we did, and we were just open about these things. And then also I think maybe it's leading by example, that you've said, hey, I'm really feeling like I've been thinking about, I'd like to do this, and I'm going to take out these few minutes a day, but also once a thing, or or this time here, or it's a one-off or whatever, I want to carve out this time for myself. So could you have the kids, or can you look after the dog, or whatever the thing is that gives you this bit of time. So I also then think it's leading by example, because when those around you see that they are benefiting from you, benefiting from being a much more balanced, joyful, happy, calmer, sorted person, because you've taken this time, and also there's something about people that sort of know themselves, and they're quite sure. I don't mean cocky assholes. I mean, like, because they're probably masking the fact that they're not really that centered. They're clamoring most days for centeredness, knowing who they are and what the thing is in the world, and not beating themselves up every day and all that sort of thing. Yeah, I think when others are benefiting, then, and you're giving, if you've made that time allowance for yourself, for that space to do that, then they could equally take their own, and so they should, and then you're going to benefit, and everyone in your family unit, or whatever household is, friendship circle, whatever it is, going to benefit. So it's, yeah, that's never a bad thing. So it's about carving out time purposefully and specifically to be in solitude, and then not filling that with scrolling and looking outwards. It's about shutting off, at least closing your eyes. You might live in a noisy area, but just go with that. And as far as being on your own goes, I think for those that maybe struggle with that, you're never really on your own. um I equally, I think, people that, you can be in a room full of people, and if your mental health is in a certain way, you can feel incredibly alone. So that's difficult, but again, these pauses and time for reflection for you, um, it's not always that easy with mental health. I've been there. But meditation and going to a Buddhist, I'm not saying go to a Buddhist one, you might see one, a poster for meditation in your local area. I would say go, but the Buddhist was good because the Kadampa tradition, and they're all over the country, because they give teachings. And even if you don't, you're not there to necessarily become a Buddhist, but those teachings can really help, or really make you think in different ways and have more of an understanding of some things. And I find that they are practical. It's a real, they're about their Buddhism deals with the real sufferings of life. So in the day, we might get points of the day when we're on our own, but you're still usually doing the shopping or commuting, or you're doing your job, or still clogged up with the noise of the day, or you're worrying about what's going to happen with this, that and the other, or you're having to think about what's happening next, or planning your shopping list. Not dedicated time. Maybe that's a good time to spend. There are points where, like, driving home from work is a good time to get up in the head and think about things, and then find a time that evening to just sit and just be with that on your own. Carve out a bit of time for that. And that's kind of how I see the practical balance. I think it's a healthy thing. I think that if you can't tell the difference between being outright selfish and just being a pain in the ass for everyone around you because it's all me, and being self-centered, as in recognizing the going into the center of oneself to become centered, to the benefit of everyone around you and to yourself, in the small day-to-day things, as well as the bigger picture of why am I here and what am I here to do, with the practice of getting up in your head with it and getting down in your heart with it, and just being a human being, not a human doing, as well as remembering to nourish yourself. Yes, go off with the family and your husband and your boyfriend and your this and your that and your children and go and do amazing things. But also, especially you mums, I probably shouldn't be saying that, but the mums, yeah, whether we do it for our own, rod for our own back or what, but there's a lot of us trotting around and we're all doing double jobs and triple jobs, running the house and all the bills and everything that goes with that, and running the family and the children and the this and that, and going out doing at least one job, full-time, part-time, whatever. Woo! It's a lot. And that might seem like there's no time left, but you people living like that, oh yeah, you have to have the discussion. And if you're on your own and you're a single mum like I was, that's really hard. But even I managed to find, I don't know, where did I leave my daughter when I went to Buddhist meditation class? Somebody must have looked after her. No, I think it was one of the neighbours. My memory doesn't really retain the things that weren't that important. It would have been all fine at the time. So thank you for spending this time with me. I hope you have got some value, something useful, something's just sort of like nudged you along to think, oh yeah, I haven't really thought of that. Maybe I should be doing that. Because if it helps, I hope it helps. We're all trying to tick along in this world. We're all trying to get through life. Do please hit the like button. You got this far, you must have, you've made it to the end. I should be giving you a like button. Well done. Do subscribe. You're not committing your life away. No one's going to be emailing you. You're just helping me and my channel along the way, and YouTube will send you more of the same from me, and also maybe it tells you the kind of stuff you like watching. I guess they're all a bit clever, aren't they, the computery things, and it's all doing stuff like that. Okay, right, enough. Goodbye. Peace be with you.